Before we dive into the story, please subscribe to our channel. That would help me a lot, and you are free to change your mind anytime later. Now let's begin the story. I'm Darren, a 42-year-old successful businessman. My wife, Emily, and I have been married for 10 years. We live in a beautiful house in the suburbs with our two kids, Sophie and Ethan. On the surface, it seems like we have the perfect life, a loving family, a comfortable home, and financial stability. But lately, things have felt off. It all started a couple of weeks ago when Emily didn't hand over her phone right away during a call with my mother. Normally, she's happy to pass me the phone so I can chat with my mom, but this time she hesitated. I noticed a strange look flash across her face before she finally gave me the device. At the time, I brushed it off, assuming it was nothing. However, that small interaction stuck with me, nagging at the back of my mind. Something about Emily's reluctance to hand over the phone didn't sit right. I started paying closer attention to her behavior, and over the next few days, I noticed a few more subtle changes. She seemed distracted at times, often lost in thought, and whenever her phone buzzed with a notification, she'd quickly glance at it and then immediately lock the screen. My suspicions grew, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was hiding something from me. I tried to push the thoughts away, convincing myself that I was being paranoid. After all, Emily had never given me any reason to doubt her before. We had a strong, loving marriage, or so I thought. Last night, when Emily went upstairs to take a bath, I couldn't resist the temptation to check her phone. I know it was a violation of her privacy, but the nagging doubts had become too much to ignore. I quickly unlocked her device and started scrolling through her messages. What I found made my heart sink. There, in plain sight, were flirtatious conversations between Emily and our neighbor, Steve. They were making plans to meet up, discussing how they could get away from the family, and even talking about a potential divorce settlement that would leave me with nothing. I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was betraying me. And not only that, but she was plotting with Steve to steal my wealth in a divorce. The sheer audacity of their plan left me reeling. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I reread the messages over and over, hoping that it was all some kind of sick joke. But the more I read, the clearer the truth became. Emily and Steve were in this together, conspiring to deceive me and take everything I've worked so hard to build. As the reality of the situation sank in, a surge of anger and betrayal washed over me. How could she do this to me? To our family? All those years of trust and commitment shattered in an instant. I wanted to confront them right then and there, to demand answers and make them see the error of their ways. But I knew that would only play into their hands. They were counting on me reacting emotionally, making rash decisions that would ultimately benefit them. No, I needed to be smarter than that. I couldn't let my anger cloud my judgment. I had to find a way to protect myself and my assets before Emily and Steve had a chance to execute their plan. That's when an idea started to form in my mind. I quickly opened the security camera app on my phone and scanned the list of cameras installed around the house. Sure enough, there were a few positioned strategically in my home office, the very room where Emily and Steve planned to search for sensitive documents. With a grim determination, I set to work. I made sure the cameras were fully operational and then programmed an automatic door lock system. The next time Emily and Steve tried to enter my office, they'd be in for a rude awakening. As I finalized the preparations, a sense of control started to wash over me. I may have been blindsided by their betrayal, but now I held the cards. The thought of outsmarting Emily and Steve, of foiling their devious scheme, filled me with a newfound resolve. Tomorrow, I would leave for my business trip as planned, but this time, I'd be watching from the sidelines. I couldn't wait to see the look on their faces when they realized their plan had backfired. The next morning, I woke up early and made my way to the nearby hotel. As I checked into my room, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of emotions, a sense of unease about leaving my family behind, but also a burning determination to expose Emily and Steve's betrayal. Once settled in, I immediately turned on the security camera feed on my tablet. The cameras in my office were perfectly positioned, and I could see the entire room in crystal clear detail. Now, all I had to do was wait. Hours ticked by, and I found myself growing increasingly restless. Where were they? Surely, they wouldn't abandon their plan after I had left for my business trip. Just as I was about to give up hope, I saw movement on the screen. Emily and Steve cautiously entered my office, glancing around nervously. I leaned forward, my heart pounding, as I watched them close the door behind them and begin rifling through the drawers and cabinets. "There it is," I heard Steve whisper, pulling a stack of documents from one of the filing cabinets. "These should be everything we need." Emily nodded, a twisted smile spreading across her face. "Perfect. Now we can finally put our plan into motion." I gripped the tablet tightly, my knuckles turning white. How dare they? All those years of trust and love, reduced to this, a callous betrayal driven by greed and selfishness. Unable to contain my anger any longer, I pressed the call button on my phone and waited for Emily to answer. After a few tense moments, her face appeared on the screen, her eyes widening in shock and panic. "Darren," she stammered, quickly glancing over her shoulder at Steve. "Hello, Emily," I said, my voice calm and measured. "Enjoying your little treasure hunt?" "Darren, I can explain," she pleaded, her composure crumbling. "Save it," I snapped, cutting her off. "I know all about your little scheme with Steve. How you two were planning to frame me and take everything I've worked for." Steve's face came into view, his expression a mix of fear and defiance. "Darren, man, we can work this out. It doesn't have to be like this." I let out a bitter laugh. "Work it out? You're both delusional if you think I'm going to let you get away with this." Emily's eyes darted around the room, as if searching for an escape. "Darren, please, we're sorry. We didn't mean for it to go this far. Let us out of here, and we can talk about this like adults." "Talk?" I scoffed. "You had your chance to talk, Emily, but instead, you chose to betray me. Well, I'm done listening." I paused, taking a deep breath to steady my nerves. "The door is locked, and the police are on their way. You two aren't going anywhere." Emily's face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Darren, please, don't do this. I love you, I swear. This was all a mistake." "A mistake?" I repeated, my voice dripping with contempt. "Cheating on me, plotting to steal my wealth. Those were just mistakes?" "No, Emily, this was a calculated betrayal, and I won't let you get away with it." Steve stepped forward, his expression desperate. "Darren, man, come on. Let's talk about this. We can work something out, I promise. Just let us out of here, and we can—" "Shut up, Steve," I shouted, my patience finally snapping. "You're just as much to blame as Emily. In fact, I'd argue you're even more culpable, considering you're the one who seduced my wife in the first place." I took a deep breath, trying to regain my composure. "The police will be here soon. I suggest you both start thinking about how you're going to explain yourselves." Emily's sobs echoed through the tablet speakers, and Steve's face contorted with a mixture of fear and anger. I watched them, unflinching, as they realized the gravity of their predicament. After a few agonizing minutes, the sound of sirens pierced the air, and I knew the authorities had arrived. I quickly disconnected the call, my heart still pounding with a mix of adrenaline and righteous fury. As I stepped out of the hotel room and watched the police officers swarm my house, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me. Emily and Steve's betrayal had been exposed, and they would have to face the consequences of their actions. Still, a part of me couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. This was the end of my marriage, the unraveling of the life I had built with Emily. But in the end, her selfish actions had left me no choice. I had to protect myself and my family, no matter the cost. With a heavy heart, I made my way to the police station, ready to provide my statement and ensure that justice was served. I would emerge from this ordeal a changed man, but I was determined to come out on top, no matter what. As I sat in the police station, recounting the events that had unfolded, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: betrayal, anger, and a deep sense of loss, all swirling together in a torrent of conflicting feelings. The officers listened intently, their expressions a blend of shock and sympathy as I detailed Emily and Steve's conniving plot. They were appalled by the sheer audacity of their plan, and I could see the disgust etched on their faces as I described how they had schemed to frame me and steal my wealth. When I finished my statement, the lead detective leaned forward, his brow furrowed in concentration. Mr. Darren, I have to say, this is one of the most brazen cases of attempted fraud and theft that I've ever encountered. Your wife and your neighbor are in a world of trouble. I nodded solemnly, my fingers unconsciously drumming against the table. I just can't believe they would stoop so low. After all these years, I thought I knew Emily. But this? I shook my head, the words catching in my throat. The detective offered a sympathetic smile. I understand this must be incredibly difficult for you, sir, but I can assure you that we will do everything in our power to ensure that justice is served. Thank you, I murmured, my gaze drifting toward the floor. I just hope that after all of this, I can still salvage something from the wreckage of my marriage. The detective let out a weary sigh. I'm afraid that may be a tall order, Mr. Darren. Based on the evidence we've gathered, your wife's betrayal runs deep. Rebuilding that level of trust will be an uphill battle, to say the least. I nodded, the hard truth of his words settling heavily in my chest. I know, but I have to try, for the sake of our children. They don't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of all this. The detective reached across the table, giving my arm a gentle squeeze. I admire your determination, sir, and I promise you, we will do everything we can to support you through this process. With a deep breath, I straightened my posture and met the detective's gaze with renewed resolve. Then let's get started. I want to make sure Emily and Steve pay for what they've done. Over the next few weeks, the investigation intensified, and the evidence against Emily and Steve continued to mount. Their frantic efforts to cover their tracks only served to further incriminate them, and the police were able to uncover a trove of damning documents and electronic communications. As the case progressed, I steeled myself for the inevitable confrontation with Emily. I knew that the path ahead would be arduous, but I was determined to see it through, no matter the cost. When the day finally came, I entered the interrogation room, my heart pounding in my chest. Emily sat across from me, her eyes red-rimmed and her expression a mix of fear and desperation. "Darren," she whispered, her voice trembling, "please, you have to understand. I never meant for any of this to happen." I held up a hand, silencing her. "Save it, Emily. The evidence speaks for itself. You and Steve were planning to ruin me, to take everything I've worked for." She flinched at my words, her gaze dropping to the table. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I was so afraid of losing everything. Of losing you." "Afraid of losing me?" I scoffed, the bitterness in my voice palpable. "You were the one who betrayed me, Emily. You destroyed our marriage, our family. And for what? Some misguided attempt to secure your financial future?" Tears streamed down her cheeks as she shook her head. "No, Darren, it wasn't like that. Steve, he manipulated me. I never meant to hurt you, I swear." I leaned forward, my eyes narrowing. "That's not good enough, Emily. You made a choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." She opened her mouth to speak, but the detective interjected, his tone stern. "Mrs. Darren, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Your only hope now is to cooperate fully with the investigation and hope for leniency in your sentencing." Emily's shoulders slumped, the fight seemingly draining from her. I don't know what to say. "I'm so sorry, Darren. I'm sorry for everything." I shook my head, my expression hardening. "Sorry doesn't undo the damage you've done, Emily. You betrayed me, our family, and everything we built together. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for that." The detective stepped in, his voice grave. "Mrs. Darren, you're being charged with fraud, conspiracy, and attempted theft. Based on the evidence, you're looking at a lengthy prison sentence. However, if you cooperate fully and testify against your accomplice, Steve, we may be able to secure a more lenient plea deal." Emily's eyes widened, and she frantically turned to me. "Darren, please. I'll do anything. I can't go to prison. I just can't. Think of the kids. Think of us." I held up a hand, silencing her. "Don't, Emily. Don't try to use our children as a bargaining chip. You forfeited the right to be a part of our family the moment you betrayed me." She let out a choked sob, her entire body shaking. Darren, please. I love you. I really do. We can work this out. I know we can. I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. No, Emily, it's too late for that. The only way forward is for you to take responsibility for your actions and hope that the court shows you some mercy. With that, I turned and walked out of the room, my heart heavy but my resolve unwavering. I knew the road ahead would be long and painful, but I was prepared to face it head-on. In the end, Emily was sentenced to 5 years in prison for her role in the attempted fraud. Steve, on the other hand, received a much harsher sentence of 10 years, given his more active involvement in the scheme. As for me, I emerged from this ordeal a changed man. I had lost the woman I loved, but in the process, I had gained a newfound appreciation for the importance of trust, honesty, and integrity. I vowed to be a better father to my children, to rebuild our lives from the ashes of this betrayal. It wasn't easy, and there were many dark days when the weight of it all threatened to crush me. But with the support of my family, friends, and the unwavering determination that had always been my hallmark, I pushed forward, slowly but surely. Years passed, and slowly but surely, the wounds began to heal. My children grew into remarkable young adults, and I watched with a sense of pride as they navigated the complexities of life with a strength and resilience that had been forged in the crucible of our family's ordeal. As for me, I never remarried. The scars of Emily's betrayal ran too deep, and I found that I was simply not ready to open myself up to that kind of vulnerability again. Instead, I poured my energy into my business, expanding it to new heights and cementing my legacy as a savvy and successful entrepreneur. And as I look back on it all, I can't help but feel a sense of pride in the way I handled the situation. I may have been betrayed, but I refused to let it break me. Instead, I fought back, using my wits and determination to outwit my wife and her accomplice, and in the process, I reclaimed my life and my future. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.